Today's sponsor is Audible.com, who has more than 180,000 audiobooks and spoken word audio products. Get a free audiobook of your choice at www.audibletrial.com/Trending Topics with BB.
Hello and welcome to another rousing edition of Trending Topics with BB. I am your host, Brooke Brown, hence the BB. I want to thank everybody that has found the podcast. If you have not figured out where we are on social media, shame on you. But in all seriousness, head over to the Facebook page, Trending Topics with BB. Head over to the Twitter and Instagram page at TT with BB. You will get all the updates regarding the podcast. And also, if you go to bbmediaindustries.com, well, actually, it's www.bbmediaindustries.com, you'll be able to find everything on the podcast listed there as well. Now, today's episode is another one of my fancy soapbox episodes, and today we're going to talk about hate speech, because I'm a little fired up. I think everybody in the world's fired up. Either you're for it or against it. I don't know why the fuck you would be for it, but it's time to get on my soapbox about hate speech. Alright, as somebody who grew up in a racist small town as a mixed race person, I can tell you that this is nothing new. The only difference between what happened this past weekend and what happened as I was growing up is that for some reason the new administration and the sign of our times makes it seem like those that are racist, bigots, and feel that their voices haven't been heard think that now their voices can be heard once again. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that I grew up in a small town. Yes, I grew up in a small town, and I do want to mention that when I was in 8th grade, I don't know how many years ago, I remember being called the N-word repeatedly just throughout town. I was with my father. My father's black, my mother's white, so obviously there's always been some issues with race in my family, and it's always going to be affected in my life. But yeah, so don't even get me started with the N-word. I've probably made some comments about that. But in terms of what has just taken place, alright, so it's funny I've been reading the internet, and what really has actually made me angrier about this whole situation. I mean, what happened in Charlottesville was fucked up, but let's move on past that. What's even more fucked up than basically what the actual events are is how the internet has made everybody feel like they need to voice their opinion based on their perspective, which I understand it. That's how the internet is. But I find it funny that the most vocal people out there over the weekend were people that probably in their life, on a lot of threads, I'm not talking to everybody, and I'm not talking to the friends that may be watching this on Facebook Live right now, but I'm talking to those who probably have never had experiences with racism and bigotry themselves. The word white privilege goes out there, but I don't even want to talk about that. I just want to talk about the fact that everybody seems to have a stance on this, whether it's right or wrong. It begs to differ, obviously, on different perspectives. But obviously, I personally am on the side where we don't have any hate speech, hate crimes, racism, obviously. Now, we can blame this on the administration, but let's just be fair here. Racism has never really gone away since civil rights. It's maybe gotten an improvement, but it's still been there. I still, on an average, my entire life, even to my adult life now, have experienced some racism to an extent. Whether you think it's gone or has gone, it's always been there. The problem is now with the current administration, people think now that, oh, okay, so I can go out there and my voices haven't been heard, or I can make my voice heard and perpetuate the system and what I think is right or wrong. Now, what really sticks in my craw, again, to go back to the internet, is that when people make comments on these charged discussions on social media, more than likely posted by some sort of news media outlet, you read down the comments and you go, okay, great comment, agree. And then you get that one comment about somebody who's so blatantly fucking ignorant that you just have to laugh. But what's funny is that it ends up pissing off another person, which then pisses off another person, which then pisses off another person. So then you got this reply comment strain on a fucking Facebook post that is getting nowhere, because really hate speech is going in a circle at that point, because people are not voicing what is not ignorant, if that makes sense. So really, I had to bring up the fact that hate speech, racism, all of that that's going on right now, has never really stopped. But the problem is we have an administration now that obviously everybody's pissed off because the administration, the current president, will not make a comment or make any comments or statements or whatever the fuck you want to call them, denouncing such racism. So that, again, pisses off people. But wait a minute. You knew if you voted for this person to be our president, you should have figured that out prior to voting for him. Because nothing has changed in terms of his stance. I mean, he was obviously supported by David Duke, head of KKK or ex-head of KKK, white supremacist, before and during the election. But now, all of a sudden, people are shocked that the president is not making any comments. How are you shocked? This was all black and white before you voted for him, but that's one thing. So, I guess I'm just talking in circles about this fucking hate speech and racism and everything that is going on right now. But the way we are handling this in an internet, social media age is not necessarily going to get anything done, because the problem is there's just so blatant ignorance, racism. People don't know they're being racist when they're being racist. So how are we going to change the problem or perpetuate the problem when basically people don't understand where they're coming from in the first place, and then it's just a over and over string. So, with that, I guess I'm just not going to go over and over what I think about hate speech. Obviously, you've gotten the point to this point of the podcast, and if you're watching on Facebook Live, I appreciate it. But to this, I will end the latest Soapbox episode of Trendy Topics with BB by saying, how about let's get over our ignorance before we denounce hate speech that we don't already understand to begin with. And with that, BB is out.